Durin just came out, and he is seeing so much success in so many teams. Honestly, he might be one of the most flexible characters to release in a while when it comes to combining both flexibility and strength. While he isn't a dramatic increase for a lot of the stronger, newer teams in the game, he just competes as the best in slot teammate for so many of the older characters that it instantly made him a valuable pull for so many accounts, especially the accounts who have been playing for a while and had quite a few older characters that would appreciate the resurgence with the help of Durin. But if we're talking about flexibility and strength, Durin has some very tough competition coming for him next patch with the release of Nod Krai's archon equivalent, Columbina. Let's talk about what Columbina is bringing to the meta, what makes her so strong, and how she compares to Durin. Obviously, Durin's banner is already over, so this video isn't necessarily telling you which of them to prioritize pulling for, since you can't prioritize Durin anymore, and I'm more so just comparing the two characters as a way to give my consensus on Columbina as a whole. But first, a word from the sponsor of today's video. LD Shop is a safe and reliable top-up site that allows you to buy currency across multiple different games, including Honkai Star Rail, Genshin Impact, among other games. They offer prices at a discount, from anywhere up to 13% to 25% cheaper than topping up in-game. Not only are the prices cheaper, but they make topping up completely effortless. All you need is your server and game ID, and you're good to go. No hassle at all, and no personal information required whatsoever. After purchase, you can see that the Jades are sent to my account within 5 minutes. There are no downsides to using LD Shop for your purchases, as the prices on LD Shop are strictly better than the prices in-game. But the upsides don't stop there. Users who register using my link in the description below will get an exclusive 15% and 5% coupon, which can save you up to $50. Additionally, if you spend $80 in total, you can earn an express supply pass for completely free. If you want to top up at discounted prices with no downsides, using a website and method that has been approved as safe by multiple large content creators in the space, then click the link in the description below to head over to LD Shop and start saving money on your gacha game top-ups right away. At a glance, both Duran and Colombina are fairly similar in their role and playstyle. Duran's job is to do off-field pyro damage while doubling up as a debuffer, while Colombina's role is to do off-field hydro damage while doubling up as a buffer. The combination of providing two of the strongest, most contested elements from off-field with 100% consistency and almost zero issues, while doing respectable damage and being able to buff the main DPS, is part of what makes Duran and Colombina so powerful and flexible. They're just such low maintenance characters. You put them on the team and they're going to do everything you want them to do without even having to think about it. But the individual strength of their kits isn't the only thing making these characters strong. It's their synergy with other characters and the ability for them to form something the community likes to refer to as wheelchair teams. Now, I'm not personally a huge fan of the term, but essentially what it means is that their synergy with certain other characters forms such a powerful team core that you can slot a bunch of different DPS characters with the exact same team core and still make a good team. Durin has this synergy with several of his Hexarray buffed characters from Mondstadt, though some of the more standout ones include Fischl when paired with Traverse, and his Albedo synergy doing enough off-field damage to make up half a team's damage. Again, part of Durin's upside is that he works so well with older characters, not to mention the fact that Fischl is a day 1 4-star character. Columbina synergies are also very strong, specifically with Inefa and Lauma. Now, these are two of the newer 5-star characters, but if you have either one of them, then congratulations! You've opened up the possibility to add a powerful duo to a lot of different teams. Columbina and Inefa just straight up become competitively the best in slot duo for so many teams. But unlike Durin, it's not necessarily because they do anything particularly strong for so many teams. It's more so just because these two do so much for each other. Columbina and Inefa both enable each other's lunar reaction damage, and they also both buff each other, allowing them to essentially do enough damage to clear content with just the two of them, plus whatever other teammates you feel like smacking onto the team. Inefa even provides a shield, making the teams incredibly comfortable to play, and neither of these characters are super burst reliant, even if Columbina's burst is nice to have. The duo of Columbina and Inefa are so strong that they can even start encroaching on some of the teams Durin was supposed to be buffing, such as Animo teams or even Electro and Pyro teams. But here's the thing. Columbina's so-called flexibility is less because of her actual synergy with other DPSs, and more so because of her individual strength when paired with the other lunar reaction supports. As far as actual DPS synergy goes, Columbina only really synergizes with the lunar reaction DPSs, such as Flynn's, Nefer, and the upcoming Zibai. This of course makes sense, since that's where her main gimmick lies. But her baseline kit and damage is just strong enough for her to branch out outside of this archetype and start affecting other teams that she, arguably, has no business affecting. In a lot of the teams Durin is affecting, Durin at least does feel like he belongs on the teams, oftentimes because of how he enables the full kits of other Hexarray characters, or just because of his res shred and off-field pyro, making sense for the teams that he's flexible in. I would argue Columbina warps a lot of teams in a way where it no longer feels like the main DPS of the team actually matters, and it feels more like you're playing a Columbina Colombina team, and your DPS isn't actually contributing much. The team is just so strong that it doesn't matter because of Colombina. In terms of actual gameplay results and clearing content, this distinction doesn't matter at all. This is mostly just me rambling about how these teams feel, which may or may not be important to you. If you don't like feeling like your favorite character isn't actually synergizing with the team, and they're just getting carried by Colombina, then that's valid, and that's the only reason why I wanted to mention this. Again, it doesn't actually translate to any real difference in-game. Outside of the Colombina and Anefa wheelchair, Colombina and Lauma feel similar to the old Hyperbloom wheelchair days, back when you would just slot in the Hyperbloom core into any team, and the final team slot could be whatever you wanted. Colombina and Lauma are sort of the second coming of this, especially because Lauma buffs Colombina's damage so much, whereas the Colombina Anefa duo focuses more on Anefa's damage, carrying almost any team. There actually is a third Colombina synergy which encoaches on another one of Duran's playgrounds, and that is the Illua synergy for Geo teams. Lunar Crystallize is the newest reaction getting introduced into the game, and while I won't cover it extensively, you can basically think of it as being similar to Bloom, except the Bloom seeds don't explode and disappear, and they still do damage. The reaction is decent enough, but again, it's the synergy between Colombina and Illua with the Lunar Crystallize reaction that allows them to be the team core for a lot of Geo teams. At least Illua does feel like he's offering something to Geo teams, unlike the Anefa version of Colombina's teams, where they aren't even offering much to the team and are just carrying the team from Anefa and Colombina's own damage alone. All this to say, Colombina massively shakes up the meta. Not necessarily because she synergizes well with so many DPSs, the same way Durin did, but because Colombina's synergy with the other Nod Krai supports is just so strong that they can sort of brute force their way into a lot of old teams, even if it doesn't make sense. For Durin, he's in an interesting position where the higher the investment of your DPS, the more competitive he gets with Colombina, because his buffs are actually relevant for the DPS, as opposed to Colombina only buffing lunar DPSs. Again, it partially depends on exactly which DPS we're talking about here, but for most of the older DPSs who Durin was buffing, the Durin teams scale better with investment into the DPS, so that they're less reliant on Colombina's damage to wheelchair them. I will say that for Colombina, she's more reliant on the newer supports to synergize with her, as we've already discussed, so if you're not planning on using Anefa or Lauma or Illua, and you also don't have any of the lunar DPSs, then her flexibility that we've discussed in this video won't be quite what we've talked about. But if you do have the ability to access some of Colombina's universal strength by having the 5 stars that she needs, who is a more valuable character for your account, Durin or Colombina? While I still think it depends heavily on who your exact DPS is, I would generally say that I still value Durin higher for electro DPSs who can utilize the Shiver's core, as well as for a few niche use cases like Kanish. But outside of that, if you have Anefa, then Colombina is probably going to add more value to your account than maybe any other character. If you don't have Anefa, then Anefa is rumored to rerun in the same patch as Colombina. However, do note that this requires you to get 2 new 5 stars. So if that's not something you want to do, then don't feel the need to do it. I just figured I'd mention it. And if you aren't planning on ever pulling for Anefa, then I would say Colombina slides back down into being side by side with Durin in value due to the amount of teams Colombina loses value in without Anefa. Colombina still has high value even without Anefa, so long as you have one of the other lunar characters like Lauma. So don't get me wrong, you don't need Anefa for Colombina, but you do need Anefa for me to rate Colombina strictly higher than Durin in terms of team flexibility. Of course, if you're trying to play one of the lunar DPSs like Flynn's or Nefer or Zibai, then obviously Colombina is the best in slot for those characters, no questions asked. So in the end, the answer is a little bit flexible, sort of like Durin and Colombina themselves. Assuming the best case scenario, where you have all the pieces you need, Colombina is probably one of, if not the most valuable unit in the game in terms of strength and flexibility combined into one character. Assuming the worst case scenario, she's probably still around Durin's level, which is actually still a testament to how good Durin is, considering how broken they made Colombina. Because, just to be clear, this isn't me saying that you should have skipped Durin for Colombina. Durin is still such a good character who works in so many areas and is super effortless to play to get his full value. Colombina is just maybe one of the most broken characters Genshin has ever released, but to be fair, so is Durin, which is why they're being compared to begin with. But what about future potential? Both of them have room to grow as more Hexarray characters and Lunar Reaction characters are released. And most notably, both of them clearly don't even have their best in slot teams in the game yet. Obviously, most of this is pure speculation, but it's not too hard to speculate on the direction this game will take based on context clues, in-game details, patterns, as well as rumors and leaks. It is very likely that Varka will be the DPS built around Durin, and this is where Durin's best in slot team will be. I don't think there's any need to pull Durin right now in the hopes that this ends up true. You can always pull Durin on a rerun, but I still wanted to mention it to show that the height of Durin's value has yet to be reached by any character. Add in characters like Nicole, who is confirmed to be Pyro and is probably also a Hexarray character, and maybe even Alice in the far future, and the potential only continues to grow for Durin. But the same goes for Colombina. It's hard to say how many more Lunar Reaction characters will release after Nod Krai, but I think we can all safely agree that Colombina's best in slot team and best in slot partner hasn't released released yet. They are clearly setting that character up to be Sandrone. It's also partially why I'm hesitant on recommending Zebai to people. Zebai is looking to be incredibly strong, but given that she's Geo, and Sandrone will likely also be Geo, I am a bit worried that Zebai will just be directly power cut by Sandrone, unless they actually make Sandrone more of an off-field character, which is possible I guess, or if Sandrone isn't Geo, which is also possible. Either way, I expect Varka and Sandrone to be the main characters who allow Duran and Colombina to fully unleash the heights of their support capabilities. So if you look purely for a best-in-slot team and not about flexibility, then the pull values of these two supports sort of just depends on which way you want to invest between the upcoming DPS characters of Varka and Sandrone. And again, this is technically pure speculation. We'll see how things play out in the future, so don't pull for Duran or Colombina solely based on this speculation. I just wanted to mention it because I felt like we have enough info to at least discuss the topic at the moment. In summary, both Duran and Colombina are very powerful characters, and you can't go wrong with pulling either one of them, or of course both of them if you want them. While Colombina technically has a wider range of strength and flexibility, assuming you have all of her puzzle pieces, and assuming you even want all of her pieces, like Inefa and Lauma to flex them between other teams, Duran still brings a lot of value to his teams. And the beauty of support flexibility is that having more of them always frees up your other supports for other teams, which is part of the value that both Duran and Colombina bring, meaning that even if Colombina does have more value for your account compared to Duran, Duran is still going to have more value for your account compared to the vast majority of other characters. In other words, don't pit two queens against each other. But yes, Colombina is quite broken. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you found it helpful or enjoyable at all, be sure to hit the like button and comment down below your thoughts on Colombina's kit, as well as your experiences with Duran so far if you pulled for him. I would love to hear from all of you. If you love this baby dragon as much as I do, consider subscribing to the channel for more Duran content, especially since Varka's beta is coming very soon. I will definitely continue periodically covering Genshin content, especially for my favorite characters like Duran and Varka. With all of that said, until next time!